our digital agriculture, food and wine group works a lot on also machine learning AI applications. So like machine vision as well, so optical near infrared, as well as sorry, as well as building machine learning models. One of the projects that we're currently working on, and if you're a livestock person, is we're actually looking to do some trials to monitor animal health using machine vision. So if you're interested in that, just feel free to get in touch with us. So on the soils and environment research group side, we do a lot of research into nitrogen cycling, nitrogen emissions. We are part of a smart fertilizer hub, and so we're looking at enhanced efficiency fertilizers. Sorry, all right. But ways in which nitrogen that's ever gets applied to the field actually gets taken up by the plant rather than being lost to the environment. So yes, all nutrition, fertility, fertilizers. So a broad range of expertise, and we also have access to a lot of basically high-end analytical facilities too.
Industrial farming destroys nutritional quality because it's based on volume and not on quality. And so how could that be changed around if we looked at a regenerative practice? When you put a synthetic chemical onto soil, and it doesn't even matter if it's a broken down soil, already broken, you'll get a short-term response. But the short-term response is just that. There's only usually about 10 to 20, even maybe not even 30% of what you put on is actually able to be taken up by the plant. The rest is volatilized, or it's leached, or it's locked up. It's not used. So the farmer is paying for 70% of material that he or she has no access to for their plants. If you have a highly biological soil, and for whatever reason synthetic chemistry is put on it, then what you do is you destroy immediately your part of all of your various biology that's in the soil. So synthetic chemistry has a negative impact on soil biology. When you put, I hear farmers saying, oh, it's coming up to spring, I've got to put my urea on because I've got to get that kick along because the calves are coming off their mothers and we need lots of grass. And then they come along to our farm here and I say, gosh, Mary, you don't have much grass. And well, we've got all we need. Why are you making the comment? And they said, oh, our cows are up to their bellies in nice fresh grass. We put the urea on in spring and all the grass is shot up. And I say, how long do your animals spend eating that grass? Oh, they're feeding all day. And I said, yeah, because they're starving. I said, they should be able to feed for an hour, go and lie down out of the sun and chew their cuds. That's what they've got 4 stomachs for. So when you have these boosts and you get this boost in, you want to see lots and lots of grass as a result of a synthetic input. What you're doing is you're elongating the carbohydrates, which are the cellulose, etc. But what you're actually doing is you're halving the nutritional value of that material. So just because you've got twice the length doesn't mean to say you're getting twice the nutrition. You're actually getting half the nutrition because what you're doing is you're filling that grass up with water. Now, stock will be hungry if they are living, first of all, on grass alone, because animals don't eat grass alone. They must have their medicinal, their other plants as well. And all they're doing is eating fibre and water. So if you've got stock and you've got a pasture that is not multi-species, that you've put NPK and urea on, and you're feeding stock on it, then your stock is starving. Right? So what you need to look at is the nutritional value. With elongation, the nutritional value goes down proportionally. Right? So what you should be after is you get your soil microbiology right with your compost, these products. You bring your compost teas in, you bring in your fish, your kelp, your molasses, your rock dust, whatever else it is that you're wanting to put on that's natural, and you allow then a multi-species as diverse as possible. Now that diversity in a good pasture should have native species. If you've got introduced species, then okay, so be it. But you should have plantain, you should have chicory, you should have dock, you should have your little dandelions. All of these are highly nutritional plants that are bringing up minerals from deep in the soil. They're not weeds. They're very, very important in terms of animal health. And so if you've got a nice mixed sward of whatever it happens to be, and then you've got nettles. There's another one. You've got your thistles. All of these, if you pick them young enough, you can use them in your own stir fries. You can use them in your salads. You can use the flowers and the young leaves. They're not pests. They're not weeds. They're very, very important. And so in that you have a concentration of nutrition. Now you may not have 3 feet of growth, but you don't want 3 feet of growth. You want 20 or 30 centimeters of growth that's highly photosynthetic. Now this is the other thing. Your above ground plant, the more nutrition in, the higher the sugars, then the greater the photosynthetic ability to convert into higher sugars. Now what are sugars? One of the things, if you're a wine industry person, you know about bricks. You know about measuring the solids, the sugars in your vines, in your grapes. Okay, every farmer who grows grass or grows anything should have a bricks meter, right? And go out and at this time of the day, after today, this time of the day, on a day like today, you go out and you squeeze the sap out of your grass, or out of your cabbage, or out of your beet, or whatever it happens to be that you're growing, your grapevine, or your almond tree, or whatever it happens to be. You go and squeeze the juice out and have a look at what the sugars are. Now, if you've got sugars below 8 on the scale, then you're going to have disease, you're going to have pests, and you're going to have poorly functioning plants, poor photosynthesis. If you can get the bricks of whatever it is that you're growing, and particularly of your pasture, up, or your vegetables, up above 10 and up to 12, you will have no disease, you will have no pests, because the insects that attack plants cannot convert. They don't have the gut capacity or structure to be able to convert high sugar. So they in effect desiccate and die. So if you just if you had in your top pocket a refractometer and a garlic crush, and when I think of the number of garlic crushes that we've been through, but there is a company up in New South Wales that now has got it right. What they've done is they've taken a pair of really strong pliers and they've put a concave piece of metal about so big on one side and a convex on the other, and you squeeze it together and you actually can get it to give you juice without breaking sort of 15 of your garlic presses. So these are readily available. They're not overly expensive. So if you then have a look at whatever you're growing, that fig tree there, the grass that's out in the paddock, if you're not getting bricks that's upwards of 10, certainly above 8, then you're going to have problems with pests and diseases. Same thing in your vineyard. Instead of just taking the bricks of the berries, take the bricks of the leaves, and then that will tell you what your photosynthetic capacity is and how much nutrients being taken up from the soil. So, to a long way around, a short way back, if you're putting synthetic chemistry on, you are getting volume, dilution, and lack of nutrients. or reduction in nutrients. If you take out the synthetic chemistry and you go down a regenerative paradigm, you're going to have less grass, you're going to have healthy cattle, or whatever it is that you're growing. You're going to have highly nutritious feed, whatever it is that you're growing. And we have found by doing this that the farmers can actually go down by 25 to 50% in the number of cows that are producing the milk, produce still the same amount of milk, but have less pressure on the pasture. So this dilution effect has no future. This is industrial chemistry. It has no future. Fruits and vegetables that are grown in a regenerative paradigm or a biological paradigm have orders of magnitude higher amino acids, antioxidants, anthocyanins. There's a bit of research done, and there's one particular paper, and I can't think of the author at the moment, but when you read that piece of literature, it basically says that there's no difference between a fruit or a vegetable that's grown biologically as one is grown with synthetic chemistry. However, when you delve into that paper, it's a whole heap of crock, and it should never have been published. So what you've got to do is, when you look at peer-reviewed papers, you've got to be very careful about who's paying the author for the information, who do they work for, and make sure that you get some independent information. Now, when you go and buy a carrot or a potato or an orange or an apple, you don't buy it to get protein and carbohydrates. You buy it to get antioxidants, to get anthocyanins, to get amino acids, to get vitamins. Now, when you have a look at good literature, you'll find there isn't a whole lot of difference in the NPK, but there is truckloads, there is orders of magnitude difference in those aspects that are to do with plant health, with animal gut health, and particularly the human biome. Right? Absolutely essential. And so if you're wanting to, a lot of the diseases, autoimmune diseases that we're seeing among our population today, it's all to do with synthetic chemistry. People are sick because the soil is sick, because the environment is sick, and we have done it. And we're at a tipping point now where, as I said, you have a look at some of the models that are coming out of the world organizations. 2021, we will have no agricultural land left if we keep on going the way we're going. Now, this population here, I certainly won't be here in 2021, but I would hate to think that in 2021, that's the outcome of something that I've done. We can't allow that to happen. So what we have to do is start to look at looking after the soil, getting rid of that synthetic chemistry. It's not necessary because we have these products that are coming on the stream, this recycling, this closed circle. If we close the circle, which is what our great-grandparents did, this is not rocket science. This is going back to where we should have been. And had it not been for the Second World War and ammonium nitrate going onto the market, we wouldn't have gone into the monoculture, the ploughing, the destruction that we've had in the last 70 or 80, however many years. So it's all done by us, and we can change it. Yeah?
So if we were testing a pasture for grass or even a vegetable crop, could you possibly use, say, a cold press juicer to crush the juice out for testing, or would the solid matter change the reading?
So the question is, could you use a cold press juicer to take the juice out? Well, the answer is I have never done it. So there's no reason why you can't. But you'd have to make sure that the juice that you're taking out is pretty clean. It doesn't have a lot of solids in it so that you can actually get your light through the refractometer. But I'd give it a go. Why not?
And can I also follow up with, if you were using a refractometer
Well, they're the same thing. They're the same. A refractometer is a prism that allows light through. What you're looking at is they're calibrated differently.
So we use refractometers for urinalysis. The ones that we have got different readings on them.
Yeah, but what are they calibrated? Are they calibrated for sugar? Are they calibrated?
Distilled water.
Well, distilled water is your baseline. That's how you standardize it.
Yeah, so that's the, yeah.
So what's it calibrated for, though? Is it measuring sugar or salt, or what is it measuring?
We are taught to calibrate them to bring them down to the baseline with distilled water.
That's right.
Read from that.
Yeah, but what are you reading? What scale are you reading?
I think there's a pH scale, and then there's so we can test blood, urine, and.
Oh, you're talking in the medical field.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm with you. The refractometers that we would use in agriculture will either be calibrated for sugar, or they'll be calibrated for salt. And so what we're after is we want the one that's calibrated for bricks, which is sugars or solids. Yes, sorry, different thing. Yeah, my apologies.
How do you spell bricks?
BRIX. And what it is, it's bricks, bome. What they are is they're terms that are used particularly in the wine industry or the alcohol industry for measuring the amount of sugar to alcohol conversion. Yeah.
What's the efficacy of compost teas on low organic matter soil?
The question is, what are the efficacies of compost tea on low organic matter soils? This is what we're finding with the garden soils with vegetables. Mineralization, and I'll answer it, but I need to get it through in my way. Mineralization is the conversion of organic compounds minerals, elements from organic compounds into an inorganic form through mineralization, through microbiology. Now, in a very light soil with low organic matter, what you've basically got is simply sand, silt, and clay. So you don't have the organic matter that's going to be the sort of home of the microbiology. So to be able to get compost tea to function well in any soil, you need to keep increasing the organic matter. So the first thing that you do when you're looking at a paradigm of regenerative agriculture or this biological or whatever you want to call it, you need to increase organic matter. And once you start increasing your organic matter, then everything else falls into place. So if you have a low organic matter soil and you're wanting to grow something, the first thing you start to do is increase the organic matter. Then your compost tea will work better and better, because what it's doing, it's putting the diversity in there to start helping to break down that organic matter. But in the absence of organic matter, it's very difficult to get the amount of mineralization that you want to be able to grow a crop, because you don't have the microbiology to do the mineralization. So it's a real catch-22. So in a sandy soil, well, I just think of what we're doing in the UAE and in Egypt. What we're doing there to try, because we're growing in Saharan sand there, what they're doing is in the compost, we're adding clay. Because clay is, it sort of has an active sites all over it. That's very fine. So there's lots of active sites. And so what they're doing is putting the clay in to the compost. That the clay then helps to hold the minerals as they're mineralized into the inorganic form. And then the clay is holding them in the root zone area so that they can then be made plant available. So in a light soil, in a sandy soil, 100% cover. I mean, that's not going to happen in the Saharan sand. But here in Australia, light soil, 100% cover, 100% of the time. Plant into your drill lines, add compost, and continue to add compost. Once you've added your compost into your drill line, for example, and you do your planting, Then you go in with your compost tea constantly through the season, or vegetables or whatever it happens to be. And then you will get the benefit of the diverse microbiology in the compost tea, activating the compost that's in the soil, producing your plant available minerals. Now, in that light soil, I would also add clay into the compost. Yeah? Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. I've just got another one about urea burn the organic matter off.
Urea.
Yeah, say if you add urea, for the carbon nitrogen ratio.
Why would you do that?
No, I'm just
Okay, this is the
out of
hypothesis.
curiosity. Yeah, would it destroy the organic matter?
Yes. Oh, well, the organic matter, it'll destroy the microbes that will destroy the organic, that will break down the organic matter.
Okay.
Urea is toxic to microbes. So I and unless you're going out in the evening to have your little nightly pee, then I wouldn't be using synthetic urea. Yeah?
Mary, I have two questions, one for yourself and one for Andrew. But to yourself, over lunch we were talking about, we have a vineyard and copper, residual copper in our soil is a major issue because obviously it's antifungal, it's anti-fungal.
Yeah.
So what sort of recommendations would you have for leaching that copper? How do you find it out?
And initially, what I would be looking at is getting high quality compost into the soil. But the genesis of that particular conversation, and I'll go back, and it could be of interest to some of you. We're trying to look at getting an industrial hemp industry going in, throughout Australia, but certainly in Gippsland. Now, industrial hemp is about a 57 to 100-day crop, depending on the season and depending on the soil. And so what we've found is industrial hemp is a particularly good plant to bioremediate soils. Now, I wouldn't say that you'd be able to do it in a vineyard, but the basis of that was if anybody's interested in an alternative cropping system here in Victoria, I'd really like to talk to you. But because it's a very good bioremediator. Now, in the vineyard, first of all, stop using copper is the first thing. But what I would do then is to put regular doses either of a good quality compost or of compost tea, because particularly the fungal component, but also the bacterial component in a good diverse system has the ability to change the copper into a molecule that is not toxic to the microbiology. And so what it would do, it would link it into and make it into an ion, ion, of some sort that takes it out of that toxic field, and means that it can be, it might be locked onto another anion, and then it means it's not going to do the damage that it's going to do. But good compost, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Mary. So, in terms of, I guess, immobilizing the copper into an organic form, usually it won't be available to the plant for uptake. I think that's the real concern. Of course, in your analysis, you also want to consider whether, the copper is actually being released into the soil environment for uptake, and that also depends on the pH of the soil as well. So I guess you might want to maybe already have done your soil analysis, your chemistry. So that would determine if that copper is coming out into an elemental inorganic form that then becomes an issue. But perhaps it isn't. If your crops aren't suffering, if your product isn't suffering, then maybe it isn't too much of an issue.
This is a hemp field. This is a hemp plant. This is what you can grow in 57 to 100 days. Okay, someone over here had the...
Mary, it was just about the rock loss minerals. Do I understand correctly that you only ever need to apply it once on your property?
It's about rock dust. I'm a great believer in rock dust because it initially has come from the lava from the center of the earth, and it has all the 100+ elements that life on earth has evolved with. Now, it'll either come up, if it's old, it's going to be broken down to granite. If it's a little more recent, it could be scoria, the red scoria that you see out in the western districts, or it could be basalt. And any one of those has all of the elements that come from Mother Earth. And if you can get that in a dust, because it's easier, the smaller the granule size, the quicker it is for the microbes to access it and dissolve it. But what we find up here, the Tynong toppings. There's a product called Tynong toppings, which is a screened less than 6 millimeter material. That's actually 22% calcium. So it's a really good product. Now we put it on initially at around, I think, 150 kilograms per hectare, and we put it on about every 5 years. And so now we're down to less than 50 kilograms per hectare. Our compost tea, we started off putting it out almost concentrated, so say 400 litres per hectare. We now put on about 25 litres per hectare as a maintenance, a couple of times a year. So with the rock dust, you'd put it on at whatever, when you do your first chemistry, it would tell you what you've got locked up, what you've got deficient. You would put it on at a rate appropriately. And then, yes, 3 to 5 years is all you need, because it's in effect a slow release fertilizer. Now, if you have access to blue rock, the basalt, and particularly if it has a good paramagnetic reading, then that is as good as well and better. So, but depending on what you're starting with, where your baseline is initially, probably 3 to 5 years is all you need. And that also is if you're taking off high capacity cropping. It still only would need 3 to 5 years. Yeah? Locke?
Just on top of that copper question, does elemental sulfur also have the same detrimental effects, or is it not quite as bad?
So does elemental sulfur have the same effect as copper? No, it doesn't. I mean, it's still considered in the metals, but it doesn't do the damage to the fungal component that copper does. Right? So you could still use sulfur if you need, if you're not going to use an alternative, but there are alternatives. But it would be better to take, and I think copper's coming out of the out of the organic, isn't it? It's not able to be used anymore. So,
Mary, is there just from a crushed rock, is there a silicosis risk with crushed rock? Do you have to be careful with silicosis?
okay, the question is there a problem, or is there a potential danger of silicosis with the crushed rock? There is a lady called Maggie Davidson at University of Western Sydney who's doing some work on the bench top silicon that gets manufactured. Also on any of the cropping like hemp that has dust. When you're using these things, you always, if there's a dust involved, you always have to be careful and wear a mask. I mean, that's just part of what you do. It's the same thing when you're working with compost or potting mix even, because Legionella can come out of commercial potting mix. So when you're working with a dry product, then you really should wear a mask. And it's a good question, because we're starting to find more and more people who are starting to have lung problems that were not thought about in terms of the dust that's created in our working environment. So yes, it would be a case of being careful. But anything that's dry, that creates dust, so compost, potting mix, something like the rock dust, the silicon dust that comes out of those bench tops, manufactured bench tops, or and then industrial hemp, anything that creates a dust. Cotton is another one that's creating a problem. She's testing lung tissue on cotton from cotton mills. All of these things have the potential to go into the lungs and cause the disease, similar to silicosis. So you always have to be aware, and wearing a mask is just so easy to do. So yes, it is a potential problem to be aware of.
Sorry, look, when you asked about sulfur, were you meaning elemental sulfur or
Yeah, you said elemental sulfur.
elemental sulfur? Okay, so just as far as I know, typically elemental sulfur is applied to actually start to acidify alkaline soils. So there is the way the chemistry works would be, and through the mediation of bacteria, would actually be to start to reduce the pH of the soil. So you got to be careful when or if you're adding elemental sulfur to the soil because of the transformations that will occur. If you're looking to get more sulfur into your soil as a nutrient, then it should be giving you sulfate than elemental sulfur.
It's as a disease. It's as a disease foliar spray.
Oh, as a disease form spray, right? Okay, so it's not the amount that you're dealing with to alter soil pH.
No, it's as a
Thanks
disease.
for
But
clarification.
yeah. But what you've said is true. So there are alternatives to copper and sulfur. So you would be looking at, in your vegetables, then you would be looking at trialing an alternative, if possible, because anything that's metal is going to affect soil biota.
I had another question, probably for Andrew.
Yep.
With respect to all the compost trials you're doing at Fogo and so forth. Obviously, Melbourne's going to produce the most amount of Fogo,
We need.
and therefore you're going to have depots around Melbourne. And yet, the compost from going to a farm in New Mildura is going to be killed by freight.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue in getting compost onto the farm is the freight costs. Satellite cities like Ballarat and Bendigo and Mildura won't be able to produce enough for those farming regions because that's where most of the farming's done. Are you seeing potentially a move away from Melbourne a little bit? I know that's where raw material comes from, but to reduce that freight cost for farmers?
Yes, we are seeing a move. We're seeing smaller facilities, like you say. For example, there's a composting facility being put in Ararat, which is just it's an in-vessel facility made of shipping containers. Actually, it's by an innovative business. There are some larger facilities moving further away from metropolitan areas. So BioGrow has set up a facility at Newbridge, which is approximately 60 kilometres west of Bendigo. I'm a new Victorian, but it's going to be a 150,000 tonne facility. And they're actually setting up a bagging plant there. They're going to do 2 million bags a year of bag compost at that site. So, look, the question on transport costs, transport costs, it is a vexing problem with us. It's a function of product value and product weight. And look, I don't have the answers, but I have some suggestions. One of them is you increase the value of compost by using it better. If it's got a higher value, the proportional cost to transport it is less. The other suggestion is value adding it on site, like what Mary has done here with feedlot manures. But look, I wish I had an answer to that question, and it applies to all Australia, and Victoria is such a small state, and so it'll be infinitely worse in Brisbane or Sydney. So I'm sorry I don't have much more info than that.
Was there a facility in Euroa that got shut down by the EPA, I believe? There was a composting facility there. Or
In Euroa.
was Euroa or Longwood Hume sort of central Vic.
There might have been that. Shannon, are you aware of? That's certainly before my time in SV, if it had.
Nothing comes to mind either, no.
Yeah.
Some place in Melbourne, writing for Buffett, you know,
Yeah.
Let's go backwards clip so you can hide it.
Okay, any other questions?
Mary, the other day, you mentioned about doing a rule work after people send themselves samples to the EAL. Would you like to make comments a bit about that?
Sorry, sending samples to EAL.
And then they send some of that sample back to you to do the biology test.
Yes, well, I've worked closely with EAL since 2011. They send samples to me, I send samples to them. The soil samples often just come to me because they can be delivered. I take off 1/2 of the kilogram, and then the other 1/2 kilogram gets sent to EAL for a chemistry. And initially, when we're starting with a new paddock or a new client, we ask them to do what is a full chemistry, which is the soluble, the exchangeable, and the total pool. Now, when you get chemistry done by an agronomy company, you often don't get the full total pool. And so, EAL and I share a lot of our testing. I do a lot for them, they do a lot for me. But soils can either go to them, but you'd need to ask them to send the biology to me, or you send them to me and I take off the biology and then send it on to them. So I just got a $50,000 bill from EAL for the amount of soils that I've sent through this project alone. That's how much work we send to EAL, and that's a lot of soils. So the reason why generally the soil comes to us is the biology can only really be transported once. And so it's better off coming here. I can take the biology off before it gets too damaged in anaerobic conditions. And then the chemistry goes off, because the chemistry is not going to change much. But the biology certainly will. And so if you're sending samples in, you should be sending them here so the biology can be taken off first, or you split the sample and you send the biology here straight away and you send the chemistry to EAL. Does that answer your question? Yeah, but to send soil to EAL and then ask for it to be sent to me for biology means that you're going to lose your biology in all of that transport, because it's going to be tied up in a plastic bag and you'll lose a lot of activity. Now, the reason why we like for the very first chemistry to have the soluble, exchangeable and total pool is that total pool of chemistry means it's chemistry that's locked up, that's not available to microbiology or to the plant. That's why it's sitting there. Now, what we do when we do the biology, what we look at is feeding the biology such that we can get the biology then to unlock the locked up chemistry. And I'll tell you a story. I'll tell this story about my dear macadamia grower in Queensland called Peter. Peter came to me on the phone, absolutely desperate, because his 30-year-old macadamia trees were dying. He had an agronomist who was telling him to put chemistry on year after year, which he was doing religiously, and his trees were dying, and he was getting to the stage where he wasn't getting a crop. So he found out about me, and so I had to talk to him on the phone, and I got him to send me some soil. Well, his soil was basically, it wasn't soil, it was just dirt. And when I had the chemistry done at EAL, I can't remember the exact figures, but what was happening was he basically had next to nothing in his soluble and exchangeable that was really useful for his big trees. These are big trees, 30-year-old trees. But I sat down and I worked out what was in his total pool that his trees were not accessing. And there were figures like 2,500 years of potassium locked up, 750 years of phosphorus locked up, 27,000 years of calcium locked up. All of the microelements were 50 and 60 and 700 and 500 years locked up. He wasn't going to live long enough to be able to use that chemistry. So when I got the results, I said to him, he said, okay, what do I do? And I said, well, the first thing you do is sack your agronomist. And he said, well, that's a given. Then I said, I know up where you are, there are some good compost makers and there are some good compost tea makers. So I put him in touch with these people. In 2 years, his trees were producing again. His trees had leaves on them again. His costs were next to nothing because all he was doing was buying compost and compost tea and fish and kelp. And he wasn't paying an agronomist. And so you can turn around big plantations in very short periods of time if you have a look at what is actually locked up in your soil in that total pool that's not being accessed by either the trees or by the microbiology. Now, that total pool is not what your agronomists are going to want you to, or chemical company people are going to want you to access, because it means you're not going to be buying product. So he stopped buying synthetic product, and he now buys his compost and compost tea, and his trees are now producing again.
When you're spraying compost tea, are you adding a fulvate or a humate or molasses or any other things with it?
The question is basically, what do we add to our compost tea when we're putting it out? What we like to do, and there's different ways of doing it, but what we like to do is to take our high quality compost from our compost ring. If Alan's going to make 1,000 litres, then we might put 20 kilograms. We screen it and we feed it. We feed it with everything that's required to get the microbiology as active as possible, but particularly so that we can see the saprophytic fungal bloom on the top, the little cotton wool fungal bloom on the top. Then we put that into the compost bag and we don't do anything else with it. We put it into clean water. And that way you can control your brew and you can control your microbial activity much better than you can if you go and put, say, a molasses into water. Because as soon as you put the molasses in, if you happen to put too much in, then you're going to get the bacteria breaking down that simple sugar and sending your oxygen levels out, right? Very, very rapidly. Because you've got to keep your compost tea above, your oxygen level above 6 parts per million. Otherwise it becomes anaerobic. So when you're feeding a compost tea, you're in danger of getting too much bacteria, taking out the sugars to give you to drop your oxygen. As soon as you drop your oxygen, then you're getting anaerobic bacteria, but you're particularly getting high levels of ciliates. And ciliates you need in your compost and compost tea in your soil, but not high levels of them. They're your indicator that your oxygen level has gone down below 6 parts per million. So the easiest way to be able to control the quality of your compost tea is to feed your compost before you put it in. And then you've got much better control. And then also, if you can get it, it only takes 4 or 5 days, you wet it down, you put a bag over the top so that it's in the dark, and then you get your saprophytic fungi growing. And that gives you all of that fungal mycelium that you're wanting to see in a perennial system, which your grapevines are. So you've already got all that hyphae. You just have to be careful how you put it out, that you don't lose it or damage it. And then you've already got now absolutely freshly growing fungal hyphae ready to attack your organic matter in the soil. Immediately you put it into the soil. This is why compost tea, good compost tea, works so well.
make with that as you're spraying it on the paddock?
No, I'd put it into the compost.
Okay, yep.
Put it into the compost because that helps to stimulate your saprophytic fungi, right? And then you can control your compost tea quality much better, and the microbiology diversity in your compost tea much better than you can if you're putting material into the barrel, into the brewer. Yeah. Any other questions? Is there anything that I've missed out that you would like to hear about? No?
Mary, at a previous session, you mentioned a statement, biology before chemistry. It's one of the 5 mantras. Could you explain a little bit more about how that...
Okay. Biology drives available chemistry to plants. It's not the chemistry that you can put all the chemistry you like onto a field, and Lottie, you don't have to get involved. You can put all the chemistry you like on a field. If you don't have the biology to turn it into an inorganic form that's plant available, then it just sits there. It leaches, it locks up, it volatilizes. So it's biology that drives chemistry availability in the plant available form, not the other way around. And so this is why rather than adding synthetic chemistry, you're better off getting your soil such that the microbiology will mineralize the sand, silt and clay, which will give you all of the 100+ elements that you want for a healthy plant, rather than just putting on something that's 2 or 3 elements that's not in proportional levels to what is required for microbiology to use it. Because there is some of the synthetic chemistry, the microbiology uses probably only 7 to 10 to 20% of it. The rest of it's just wasted, but you've paid for it. So it's the biology. If you have active biology, it will mineralize your sand, silt and clay to give you all the elements you want, not just the half dozen that somebody's tried to sell you. And as long as you keep that organic matter higher than... Okay. Send me an email. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Travel safely. Increase your organic matter in your soil so that you have the microbiology diversity there that can mineralize the sand, silt and clay. That's the inorganic component of your soil system. And they'll produce all of the elements that you require if you have a balanced system. And even, as I said, when you're taking off high quality crop, I'll talk about, we have a vegetable grower just down here. He's organic. Well, he's biodynamic actually. And so he takes off 27, 28 different crops constantly through the year. When we started with him, I can't remember the exact figures, but it was something like 28 kilograms of plant available nitrogen potential he had in that soil. Within 3 or 4 years, even with him taking off the crops that he was taking, he makes his own compost, he does everything himself, his own compost tea. He was upwards of 228 to 350 kilograms of plant available nitrogen per hectare, which is way, way more than he requires. And I would suggest, I haven't done a soil sample for him for a couple of years, but I would be very surprised that his plant available nitrogen, due to his soil health, is not still upwards of 250 kilograms of plant available nitrogen per hectare. So, it's being done. It's being done everywhere. So, don't say it can't be done. It can be done.
Yeah, Mary, some of the tests that you've done for us over the years, we've had over 300 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, and this is in a pasture situation.
Exactly. Yeah, Darren's in South Australia, and he's had some pretty poor dairy farms and beef farms that he's sent me soil, and we've had just, some of them barely register the first year. They're full of what they call their weedy species. They have no diversity. They have reeds. They have acidified soil. And then we've gone ahead, Darren, and the mixes that he makes up on the basis of the biology tests that we do. And yeah, you're right. We've been able to turn, just in 2 or 3 years, soils that have been, less than 6 kilograms or certainly less than 25 kilograms of plant available nitrogen up to over 350 kilograms of plant available nitrogen in pasture. Now, one of the reasons why pasture is easier to work with is because it's a perennial 100% cover 100% of the time once you get your biology right.
And those soils still have got 15 to 50 worms of cover for them, so you're reducing your phosphorus and all your calcium and everything else.
Yeah, so yeah, good worm counts, good everything, and and the cost to that farmer must have gone down exponentially, and the health of the soil, the health of the cattle. So it's doable. There are people doing it. There are farmers doing it everywhere. You can do it. You've just got to want to do it. You've just got to get out of the chemical paradigm because it has no future. It has no future. And even these companies like Incitec Pivot, they're trying to now get in and start making what they're calling organic products because they know that their economic base is going to disappear pretty rapidly.
We've got farmers that have been using their products and using this system for over 20 years now, and they're producing as much as everyone else, and it's much easier, much less cost, and much healthier. So
Yeah.
people, we often hear everyone will say, this is only a short-term thing. It's not. It gets better every year, grows and grows and grows. The soil gets deeper and deeper.
That's right.
Instead of farming with 3 inches of soil, you're farming with 2 feet. So
That's right.
it can be done every
That's
year.
right. And what Darren's saying is when you become a soil farmer and a microbe farmer, it's a journey of building up the microbiology, getting back the stability that was there before you started interfering with it. And it takes a number of years. But each year you can walk over a paddock, a nice pasture. This pasture here, you walk over it, it's spongy because it has huge amount of mycorrhizae in it. The carbon, we did a total carbon test down the back, not this soil carbon thing that's going around, but we just did a soil chemistry, and we did a total carbon 20 years ago maybe, and I think it was 12% organic matter. We're now running at 23-24% organic matter. And all we've added to this soil is compost tea, compost. So we've more than doubled our organic matter. Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, so it's doable. So the less disturbance, if you just aerate with a spike or with a yeoman's plough or a similar, then you can get those products like compost tea going down further. You get your roots going down further, you get your mycorrhizal fungal biomass building up, you get the soil temperatures going down, you get the pastures able to have the resilience to cope with increasing temperature or decreasing temperature, whatever it happens to be. But you certainly have resilience, and you have increased sugars in the grass, you have increased photosynthetic ability. And when you've got a pasture, if you've got cropping animals, or even when you've got a system that is growing something, you should always have animals in a system. You should never, we separate them, but in nature they're not. They go together. And so you can use your sheep or particularly sheep as lawnmowers. You can run your cattle through pasture areas very rapidly so that you don't eat down more than 50% of your photosynthetic matter. And as long as you do that, and then now that you've got access to these products that are going to come online, and yes, okay, the transport costs are going to be problematic, but if we could get some legislator to say, okay, we're going to pay you for quality, not for quantity, then all of this stuff would be dirt cheap. And so it's up to us to try and get that paradigm shift and try and, Well, I mean, first of all, I would like to see us do away with supermarkets because they're just destroying the farmers. And go back to the little street corner where you've got your fruits and vegetables. We would have a healthier society, and we'd have much better mental health as well among our farmers, because it's tough being a farmer in Australia.